Okay. Hi, CJ. Welcome back.
Hey, great to be here, Pat. Thank you very much for having me on.
Yeah, yeah, no problem. And I think we're dealing with everything else is fine and dandy. We have some artificial lighting going on, but that's about it. Because it's dark where I am. I don't know about you.
Yeah, it just got dark and I
Yeah.
can't, the glare on my freshly shaved head is just driving me nuts, but this is what happens as you start pushing 50.
And with that comes a lot of good experience and some war stories. So I guess a lot of the people watching the show sell on Amazon, of course. And I guess that when we talked last time, what I found really interesting is that you are one of those people that really stands up for third party sellers, and you have the mentality that what, Amazon's a great platform, but folks need to be represented properly. Um, from what I understand, how long have you been the Amazon seller's lawyer?
Well, I guess it's been almost the sole focus of our practice now, probably pushing 3 years.
Okay.
My first involvement was probably a good 7 or 8 years ago when a client of mine started looking at buying an Amazon-based business, and it took years of negotiations.
Yeah.
And I was involved, and then I wasn't involved, and then I was. Ultimately, they closed. Then they got suspended after sinking in hundreds of thousands of dollars. And he then started looking for someone to help him. And at that time, there were no lawyers doing it. And the people that were doing it were never big time sellers. And he already knew more than what these consultants were selling.
Right.
And so he called me up and he's like, you have to look into this. You've been representing entrepreneurs forever.
Right.
You got to look into this because there's nobody who knows what they're doing. There's no one who's like educated. There's no one with a team. Look into it. And I did. And I was like, this is great. I mean, there are other people doing it now. There are some other law firms who would jump into this space.
Yeah.
We are by far like the largest law firm doing it. We are the only people who do plans of action that actually have a centralized team in one place.
Yeah.
In the doors to my left, we have two conference rooms where our teams work together, all college educated paralegals and writers, writing plans of action, bouncing ideas off of each other and using cumulative experience. And nobody else has that. Nobody else actually has a centralized office. In fact, I recently learned that one of my main competitors really works out of like a post office box.
Hmm.
So you need to know who you're hiring. So that's what we bring to the table. It's an entire firm of college-educated people helping Amazon sellers, everything from retail arbitrage and online arbitrage, all the way to saving private label sellers and protecting their IP rights. We handle it all. We're here for sellers.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's great. And I think, and another thing that I think people should check out if they haven't already is, I was just on the site, and it looks like you've sort of built out your resource library a little bit, like on the topics of fashion, but there's also the sort of definitive book that you put out that's now live on Amazon. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me talk about what we give. Like our website, I think we're pushing 1,000 pages of content. We analyzed every single lawsuit that Amazon was involved in. All those cases are online. You can buy the book on Amazon, but you don't have to. It's more of a reference book. You can see everything from trademark infringement to copyright to tax issues. All of it's on our website. It's all free. We probably have 300 or 400 articles, mostly ours, but also some from other people in this space who help sellers. You could run in our own search engine. We really have become like, I don't want to pat myself on the back, but our website has become sort of a platform for research on what you can do. There are articles on how to write your own plan of action. If you go to our YouTube channel, how to deal with your own IP complaints. So I'm a huge believer in paying it forward. I was given the idea to get into this space. I'd love to help sellers help themselves. But if you go to our website, there's a tremendous amount of information written by me, written by our team. We're up to 3 books now. The Amazon suspension book is our most recent book. But yeah, if you go to the website, there's an absolute ton of free information and a ton of free lessons on our YouTube channel.
Okay, nice. Yeah, we'll link the. I just noticed on the tech side, my voice is echoing through the recording. Did it stop? Oh, it stopped. Okay, I guess okay. We're good. Um, yeah, so the site is amazonsellerslawyer.com. I will link it in the description, as well as link to the YouTube channel because we're going to be on YouTube in a matter of days. It's the 28th right now, so I'll get this out in the next day or so.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, so I guess a lot of the people that are watching, they sell on Amazon, and hopefully they haven't gotten any sort of trouble yet. Uh, but it's almost inevitable that something will go awry on the platform, Amazon being as it is. So when you get inquiries, say like inbound inquiries by phone or by email, what are people normally stuck with? What are some common things that people come to you for?
All right. The number one cause of an Amazon suspension, either for a particular listing, like your best ASIN goes down,
That
or your
sucks.
whole account, is this inauthentic, where Amazon just wants to see where you sourced your products from. So whether you're like a newbie or you're an experienced seller, you should automatically be scanning your invoices, making sure that the fonts on the invoices are all the same. If there's a signature line, that they're signed, have the prices on there. Only buy from places where the website actually exists. Make sure you have, yeah. You want to make sure that you're sourcing your products from good sources that can be traced back to the manufacturer,
Yeah.
so that one, you have great records, and number two, if you have this problem, you could like immediately respond to Amazon. They want to see the invoices, and you already have them scanned in. You've already been careful to only have good invoices, so you can respond to it right away and get right back to doing business. Um,
Right.
on a preventative note, avoid sourcing your products at any place that has the word liquidator in it. A lot of liquidators actually changed their names because they found out that Amazon wasn't accepting their invoices, means sellers weren't buying from them. So if you have a choice of buying from a source that has the word liquidator in their name or one that doesn't, go with the one that doesn't. Go with the source that has more descriptive invoices. Take pictures, keep great records outside of Amazon. And this is a way that you can prepare for, in a way, the inevitable, getting that inauthentic and being able to respond within minutes. And that's, I think that becomes more persuasive. Like, we bust our tails to get our plans of action out the door by the second business day after being hired.
Hmm.
It's because I believe that it's more persuasive if you get it out the door right away. It's like you already have the documents that they want, maintained, and you get them right out the door. And I think that does have some persuasive ability, although we've also won cases that were like, 3 or 4 years old. But when you're sourcing, keep good records, take good pictures. We even had clients take pictures of themselves at their source where they were buying it from.
Hmm.
Just keep another record because you want to be able to respond right away. And I think that's just good business. Add one more step to it, just like you would buy insurance. Keeping good records and having good invoices is your insurance against a quick reinstatement if you have a problem.
Right. Right. So the inauthentic claims, preventative measure. So say you're sourcing from China, which I imagine is the case a lot. Are there any particular best practices that you should ask your supplier to be following when you're working with them?
100%. 100%. One, you want to make sure you can actually identify the factory and you want to get the products or at least the invoice from the factory. Alibaba is an incredible platform. I mean,
Yeah.
Jack Ma is just a freaking genius, okay? He deserves everything that he has earned. But if you're an Amazon seller, you can't submit an Alibaba invoice. You're just going to fail.
Oh, you can't. Okay, good
You
to know.
can't. I mean, you can, but it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
So you want to get the invoices straight from the factory in China, and you could do that also through their system.
Okay.
You want to have them translated so you know what they say.
Mhm.
If you're buying something that's like a brand name, like, there's a lot of issues about fingerling products right now, these little puppets that go on your finger. And if you're not buying from the same factory that actually makes them for Wowie, which is the company,
Yeah.
you're going to have a problem.
Right.
So you really want to watch what you're ordering. If there's like a design patent on it, you want to alter the design a bit so you can withstand that type of issue. But certainly preventative measures is getting your invoices directly from the factory, having them translated. Most factories can do it for you, or you can incur that cost yourself. But that's something you want to do. You want to make sure you're buying legitimate products and be able to show where you purchased them from.
Yeah. 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 Okay.
And no Alibaba receipts. Nothing that says Alibaba on it. I don't agree with it, but this is the system that we're working on. So don't send Amazon anything from Alibaba.
That, I mean, that's so good to know because I haven't dealt with one of these, but I can imagine, a first-time seller just say Alibaba's where I bought it, so logically it follows that I'll just submit the invoice from Alibaba. But no, it's good to know.
And there's nothing inherently wrong with Alibaba. It's a huge service,
Right,
but Amazon is just not receptive to their invoices.
right. Okay. So if we go back on the tree branch, then you have inauthentic claims, and that's the primary cause. In terms of other inquiries, issues, I guess is the inauthentic claim the same as a suspension, or that's a cause of a suspension, a
It's a
common
cause.
cause? Yeah,
It's a cause of a suspension.
yeah,
Sellers will receive an email. Your account has been suspended
yeah,
for inauthentic. Please send us your invoices and a plan of action to address, blah blah blah.
yeah,
Sometimes it's the ASIN. Sometimes it's the whole account.
yeah.
Sometimes it'll just be asked for the invoices and the product will remain. But you definitely, that's still number one. Second used to be used, sold as new. But now IP complaints are probably number two reason of losing an ASIN or your account.
Hmm.
Intellectual property or rights owner complaints are sometimes called.
Yeah.
Most of the complaints are absolutely baseless. I mean, absolutely baseless, but there's still a tremendous cause of problems for sellers on Amazon.
Why are most of them baseless?
Well, in the United States, we have what's called the first sale doctrine. It means basically that if I buy this cup,
Yeah.
I can resell this cup as long as I'm selling it in the same condition as the original manufacturer did.
Yeah.
And we're allowed to do that. It's different in the UK. In the UK, having permission to sell is part of their intellectual property law. But if you're not in the UK, you're selling in the US, you can buy and sell practically anything that you want.
Okay.
There are exceptions to it, but for the vast majority of products, you can buy and sell it. You're not violating anybody's IP rights. It's really just a brand or a competitor trying to stop you from undercutting their prices.
Sure. Okay. So for well, I guess that's why something like retail arbitrage can exist in the U.S. ecosystem, right? Is that people can resell consumer goods packaged, they're new, packaged for lower prices, which is one of the functionalities of Amazon. But you're saying a seller may try to launch a claim to, and that it is baseless because of this law.
Yes, happens all the time. Big brands and small, seller versus seller BS complaints.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. I'd estimate probably 98, 99% of the intellectual property right complaints are entirely baseless. I mean, it's why we are successful, because we stand up to the brands and we stand up to the other lawyers, and we tell them, we know your complaint is baseless, and you do too. So withdraw it. And when they do it, they'll try and knock off like 20 sellers with one of these complaints, and only one of those sellers will find us.
Sure.
And we'll get them back on. But they still then managed to knock off 19 competitors who were buying their products like, tennis dresses in the middle of winter in the Northeast. They can buy on the discount rack in like a Marshall's or Walmart, and then sell to a buyer in Florida or Southern California.
Yeah.
And like, Danskin, whatever, will get upset that you're undercutting them. But there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing illegal. You're not violating anybody's rights. So the vast majority are just entirely baseless.
Right. Well, what about a private label scenario where, say, there's one sort of common Chinese product on the market, the form factor is identical, you've seen it around, you're a seller, and you put a different paint job on it, there's a slight maybe physical modification, a size, a color, a texture, something like that. Where does that fall usually? And do you see those private label sellers getting in trouble, or not so much?
We do. In fact, you just talked about a lot of things that we advise our clients to do. If you're selling a fairly generic product, but you want to make sure it stays yours and you want to protect it from other sellers, you have to add something to it. It has to be an add-on. You have to have like something else added to the product, a different color, a different packaging, a different use, some improvement, an add-on to it in order to stop that.
Yeah.
Because also, even if you design something from scratch, the biggest threat to private label sellers are their own factories. By far, number one threat to a private label seller is where they're having their product manufactured.
It's very interesting.
A lot of people bash the Chinese counterfeit, the Chinese this and the Chinese that. We have full-time staff in China that can help sellers. It's not necessarily the fact that they are Chinese. It's just the fact that 90% of the factories are there. Mm-hmm. So if you have 90% of all production being there, 90% of the counterfeits are also going to be there.
Yep.
But for a private label seller, you need to have a really good relationship with your manufacturer. So the Chinese call it guanxi, and it's just relationships. And relationships prevent that culture from screwing over who they're doing business with. Because if you have a relationship and they screw you over, they lose face. They lose guanxi. So you have to, if you're doing private label, get on a plane, fly to Hong Kong, cross the border into Shenzhen, and visit your factory in person. It's a really cool place to visit, by the way. It's incredible what they've built. And just the relationship that you need to develop in order to continuously get your products and maintain that relationship and protect yourself. It's a pretty long flight from wherever you are in the U.S., but it's really, really worthwhile. What you're going to see there, the first time you go, it's a bit daunting. Like you literally, like when you cross, Hong Kong's like a piece of cake. It's like any other city in the world.
Right.
When you cross over from Hong Kong into the mainland, and they're like taking the temperature gun and shooting your forehead to make sure you're not sick, and the stone face, and the red flags everywhere, but it's a really incredibly energetic place to visit. So private label sellers, go meet your factories. 100%, go meet your factories. Make a relationship with them. Make sure if you're selling a generic product, add something to it to make it your own. You could also include things like newsletters or licenses or links or other add-ons to your product that would prevent other people. In fact, while we only help sellers, but a lot of sellers now doing private label, and we help them protect themselves, sometimes against other sellers. But this is where the future is. Private label is by far where the future is going.
Yeah. In a hypothetical sense, how much would a seller need to change a product to be on the safe side? Nothing definitive here, of course, because it's very case by case. But is a small physical tweak enough? Is a color change enough? Some intuitively, I think maybe these minor changes might not be sufficient.
Here's the story. It's impossible to say in a vacuum.
Right.
Color change is probably not sufficient. A shape change kind of feels like it should be. And it's kind of like...
It feels like it should be, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it should be. But it's kind of like the duck. You ever hear the duck test?
No.
It walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck. It's a duck. Well, I'm going to use my cup of tea here for the same thing, right? Round teacup, very hard to change, right? If you change the shape, you change something to make it insulated, or you change the way you're taking the fluid out of it, and all of a sudden it's not really a duck anymore, you're probably safe. If it's still a round cup, you didn't add anything to it, but making it black instead of orange, it's probably still a duck, right? So I think it's a lot of it's common sense, and also when you're dealing with this stuff, you got to think about who you're talking to. You're talking to people working for Amazon in Hyderabad or Bangalore, 2 cities in India, where they don't have a lot of time to evaluate what you're sending to them, okay? So you want to make something that's persuasive, okay? And they're smart, they're educated, they're hardworking people, they're good people. We interview people from India as often as we can so we get some inside information. But whatever you're doing, if you think about who your end audience is, you look at it. So if I put a red stripe on my cup, is it really going to persuade somebody it's different? No, right? But if I change it, if I add insulation to it, if I made something significant change to it, then I should be able to persuade somebody that it's different. I think that's what you have to look at them. How can I persuade someone to see it the way I do, or the way I want them to?
Right. I think it's like I'll know it when I see it sort of thing. It makes sense. And to err on the side of caution, more changes the better. Do you have a process for checking for existing IP, like Google patents or the USPTO or something like that? Is it?
Yeah, we do. We do. If you're going to get big into a product, we charge a fairly nominal fee to do it,
Yeah.
and we check the USPTO. We also do online research. We'll check other sellers to see if there are similar products that may cause you a problem or similar generic products. And then we'll write you an opinion letter that says either we think this is a pretty safe product to go into because of 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Right.
We think this is a very dangerous product for you to go into. We also check for litigation or somewhere in between, so you at least have a little more information to make your decision. But again, we see everything as a business decision where, getting into fidget spinners at the right time would have been risky because somebody else owned the intellectual property rights. But there was a fortune to be made, so it was worthwhile, right? Other products like, starting to compete with Apple and selling a knockoff lightning cord, is very dangerous and not worthwhile. You're not going to make a ton of money because there's a million of them out there, right? It's not an exploding product. And Amazon and Apple is all over sellers.
Right.
So we try and give an opinion so that you can make a good decision whether to invest in, a pallet or a container full of fidget spinners or whatever the next thing is.
Yeah. And there will be a next thing. I'm not sure what it is. Fidget spinners are done, but I'm not sure what there isn't a next fidget spinner just yet. But I'll see it when it comes out.
But I can tell not what's coming up, but what's definitely hot because my kids want it.
Right.
I got to have 30 fidget spinners in my house. I got 4 kids. And my eldest daughter has to have 2, if not 3 of those blow-up couches that you swing around in the wind. They blow up.
Yeah.
They look like a pair of lips.
Yeah.
And the markups on those products are just incredible.
Yeah. What's the age range there? I think the younger they are, just the more attuned they are for some reason to like these upcoming trends.
I've got 5 to 14.
Right.
And this is not yet 14, almost 14. Is by my almost 14-year-old daughter.
I thought that was a Van Gogh, but it could pass. it could pass. I think quite handily at auction. It'll do well.
A little shout out to my daughter Sam for the awesome painting that's in the background.
Excellent work, Sam. So I guess okay. So we've come across this a few standard reasons for why an account might be suspended. Did you want to walk through a preliminary response to I don't necessarily advise people do things themselves, just because if you have someone who's done it 1,000 times and successfully at that, you're better off just making the investment. But so fair warning. But for those people who want they're determined to take the DIY approach, what would you have them do to respond to a suspension letter? Does Amazon tell you what you've been suspended for? Is it vague? Is it like...
They're very vague. They'll give you the reason, like an inauthentic or an IP complaint or you sold as new or whatever, but they don't really get into the details of like what the IP complaint was about.
Right.
So anyway, here I'm happy. Listen, I'm a huge believer in paying it forward. I'm a huge believer in giving people the ability to handle things themselves. So here are the 3 sections for any plan of action. Okay?
Let's do it.
1, root cause, ROOT. It's Amazon's language, a root cause. Number 2, your immediate corrective action, what you did immediately when you learned about the problem with the consumer. And the 3rd section is your long-term change to your business or systemic changes to sort of assure Amazon that they're not going to have a problem with you in the future.
Okay.
The root cause, and a lot of the consultants are still doing this, do not ever admit to doing something wrong, okay, unless you are 100% confident that you did something wrong and that Amazon knows about it, okay? And I'll explain why at the end. So for the root cause, you really need to do a deep dive Amazon language investigation to try and figure out what caused whatever the problem was.
Yep.
And then once you identify that cause of the problem, you want to write a root cause of it in a descriptive way that says how you're going to get better to prevent the problem from happening again. And it really is just playing with the verbiage, not saying, I should have boxed something better, right? You can say we're switching to better packaging without admitting that your first packaging sucked, right?
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
So
Right,
it's
right.
all in how you phrase it. Okay. Now, the reason why is that if your plan of action fails and your policy team escalation fails and your Bezos team escalation fails, and now you have to take Amazon to arbitration, if you admit to doing something wrong at the first level, you're going to lose your arbitration. Okay? So phrase it as what you can do better, and all businesses can do better. And Amazon teaches their staff to constantly look for improvements. Okay? So that's your root cause. Now, your immediate corrective action, the second section, is what you did as a business person as soon as you learned about the complaint to try and make that customer happy. Okay? And what you have to do is forget about whether the customer was right or wrong, whether they're trying to steal from you or not. What do you immediately do? You immediately give the item for free, right? Refund their money, send them another one, send them 2 more, whatever it takes to make that customer happy. Because that's what Amazon cares about. They're like customer-centric, right? Then there's the brands, right? And they become very brand-centric over the last couple of years. And then we're like way down there, okay? So whatever you need to do, even if you are certain the customer is just totally full of it, do what you can to make that customer happy, okay? And the third section are systemic changes to your business. Like, what are you going to do so that Amazon has no more problems with you? Sometimes it's retraining. Sometimes it's automating procedures, which Amazon is a big fan of automating things. Sometimes it's hiring extra staff. Sometimes it's dropping products. Sometimes it's changing sources. This is all very case specific.
Right.
So you really want to think about, and every business, including our law firm, okay, there are always ways to improve. I spent half the day today going through a list of our ongoing cases, meeting with our managing paralegal, Kerry. Okay, how can we be better? How can we be faster? How can we be more communicative with our clients? Because you can always get better. Mm-hmm. And you need to figure out a way that you're going to change your business and actually do it, so that Amazon is convinced, or the rep is convinced, that you're not going to have this problem anymore. If it's a bigger problem, like if you're selling 20,000 SKUs and you now need to redo your listings, you don't have to get it all done before you submit. It's good if you do a handful of them and then say, well, hope we're going to do 100 listings a week until we get done. We should be done now by the end of December based upon the schedule, and we hope to be faster than that. That's acceptable to Amazon many times. But you want to identify what, as a business, you're going to do better. Also, I think you have to look at everything as a business. There's no reason to tell Amazon staff in India how much money you were making. There's no reason to tell them you can't make your Mercedes payment anymore, or private school.
Yeah, for you, yeah.
You're writing to people in India, right? So most of them, most of the people that work for Amazon have an okay, lifestyle, but there's still terrible poverty there. So don't write about your private nursery school. Excuse me. Also, their time is limited, so get to the point and be persuasive. So that's the basics.
Right.
Excuse me.
What? So when it's finished, how long is it usually?
If it's a real simple, like inauthentic, it could be as short as a page with lots of bullet points.
Right.
If it's more of like an in-depth problem, like you really did have systemic problems with your listings, it could be a couple of pages.
Right.
The people in India they have quotas. I don't know what they are. We find out a lot of information by cross-examining Amazon's witnesses. So I don't know what the quotas are yet or not, but I do know that they exist. So you got to be short, concise, persuasive, but sometimes being persuasive requires some analysis, which makes it a little bit longer. But concise and persuasive. And that could be 1 page or it could be 3. But again, concise and persuasive.
Right. Stylistically, bullets seem to make sense just because it's, easier to read, I suppose. So roughly with those 3 sections, each would have a set of bullets covering the issue, perhaps?
Usually, yes. Sometimes we find that written sentences are more persuasive in some situations. Sometimes we find bullet points. Yeah. It's kind of hard to say. That's why every single plan of action we write is conference with the team, every single one. And we also shift, like as we see that, bullet points were being more successful, we shifted to more bullet points. When we see they're being less persuasive, we shift to that. We've used a ton of stick-on arrows,
Yeah.
right? We circle something, not on Photoshop. We use the Apple program, whatever it is, because you really want to make it easy, simple, and persuasive.
Yeah.
And sometimes that requires verbiage, sometimes requires bullet points, graphics, pointing out. If you're sending in invoices, again, we've learned a lot by cross-examining Amazon's witnesses, and we're not allowed to reveal what we've learned because they're all confidential. But look at your invoices as if you're trying to find a reason for them to be fake. Mm-hmm. If the fonts are different, don't use them. Mm-hmm. Okay? If there are blanks, get your source to fill in those blanks. Make sure the invoices look solid. They look real. They could be real and look fake, and they could be fake and look real. When you send them to Amazon, they got to look real. Okay? Whether they are or not doesn't really matter. The goal is to get reinstated, right? So whatever invoices you're sending in, you got to make sure they look legitimate. And something with 6 different fonts just doesn't do it.
Right. Yeah, that's so true, and it's something that I don't think people think about enough. So in terms of people's day-to-day operations, I think it would be nice to sort of send people off with maybe a few bullet points here. Speaking of bullet points, it's like definitely unify the invoices and make sure that they're clean. Visit your supplier if at all possible. Any other sort of so we dove through the entire sort of the appeal, but day-to-day operationally, are there other things like the invoices, other activities, routines the seller should be doing to make sure that they mitigate the problems? Problems may still arise, but
also 100. Listen, I think Amazon, while it still has a lot of bumps in the road, that's a lot of challenges. This is still like the most remarkable opportunity for everyday people and businesses to compete globally. I mean, the opportunities they have provided to us is just unheard of in the history of commerce.
Mm-hmm. Really is.
Okay. So get in the game. I advise people when they're trying to figure out what to sell, either look at where they have hookups, where they have connections, or products that they really know and love and use, right? So on a positive, that's what I think you should do. On a day-to-day operation, I think that every seller should spend some time looking at the seller forums, okay? You can start by searching your products, but just spending some time looking and reading and listening, even if it's only a half hour a day, it keeps you abreast of what's going on and what's coming down the pipe.
Right.
For example, I'm going to talk this week, as the Super Bowl gets closer and closer and closer, I'm going to advise sellers all over the world to stay away from NFL products, okay? Unless you are dead on buying them straight from the NFL and you got nerves of steel. Last year, there was so many sellers that were suspended that it just may not be worth the risk, okay? Now, I hate to kowtow to baseless complaints, but again, it's not about being right, it's about making money, okay? So watch the forums, watch videos, donate some time every day to learning a little bit more about your platform because it's ever changing. Listen to other sellers, these groups and these sellers events that happen, all over the US and around the world. They're great. You learn a lot, and you also get to sort of commiserate and inspire each other, just like this. I mean, people are going to walk away going to say, you know what? Yeah, I knew that, but I did walk away with this little piece of information. So donate time every day to that. Also, this particular time of year, don't change anything, okay? Don't rock the boat. Don't change your credit cards, your banks, your product line. You're doing well. You're making money right now. Ride it out to the end of the year. Christmas passes. You want to try something new? Do it then. Right now, make the money you can without rocking the boat. Don't poke the bear.
Good advice.
So that's what I'd recommend. It's all about making money, and I'd rather see a seller make 70, 80% of what they can rather than risk it all and end up with zero right before Christmas. So don't change anything. Don't get suspended. If you do, react really quickly. Just like last year, we saw the suspensions just escalate tremendously and the reinstatements fly in quickly also. Not in all the cases, but certainly faster this time of year.
And This time last year, you saw the suspensions ramp up around the holidays.
Yep, suspensions
Oh, right,
ramped up,
right,
and then the reinstatements ramped up.
right. Sure, sure.
But stay in the game. This is a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
Be inspired. There's so much money to be made. There's so much freedom to be had by being your own boss. There's never a day off, but you reap the benefits of growing your own business. I think it's a huge opportunity for sellers. So get in the game, stay in the game. It's a huge opportunity.
That's excellent. Well, if you're all right with that, I think we'll leave it there. That was a nice inspirational note to leave it off on because, well, we do need to take care of all these logistical things. It is really about the opportunity that's ahead of us. So it's a good
Huge. But yeah, thank you. I'm really, thank you very much for having me. Can I plug one thing?
point. Of course, go for it.
Okay, I'm not plugging me, okay? I'm not plugging my book. This is what I'm going to plug. Most of us who work on Amazon in some fashion, we also shop on Amazon, right? Love, hate relationship, whatever it is. If you're shopping on Amazon, please shop through the Amazon Smile program, okay?
Oh,
It's
CJ. That's a noble plug.
okay. A really close friend of mine, a fraternity brother of mine, who used to be a knucklehead, and now he somehow became this great adult. Him and his wife, Cindy, lost their son, Ty, to cancer. And they turned tragedy into this fantastic foundation where they raise money to try and find a cure for pediatric cancers. It's called the Ty Lewis Campbell Foundation. TY is Ty, Lewis Campbell Foundation. You can pick them through the Amazon Smile, and it doesn't cost you anything. Amazon takes a little bit of the money and sends it over to the foundation. And it's just great to pay it forward. And if you're buying, buy through Amazon Smiles. Please identify Ty Lewis Campbell Foundation for their donation. It's just a fantastic foundation with a noble cause. Pediatric cancer is just awful.
Yeah.
The kids get tortured, kids die, and they get such a small amount of the funding from the government that they need every private dollar they can count, and Bezos can afford it. Okay, so Amazon Smiles, and please pick the Ty Lewis Campbell Foundation.
All right. Great plug. Worthy plug. All
You
right.
thought it was going to be me, but it's not.
Well, speaking of that, you can also, if you'd like, find CJ at AmazonSellersLawyer.com. Thanks for coming on. It's always a pleasure. You're welcome back anytime, of course. And
Great being here. Thank you very much, guys, and good luck in the rest of the holiday season.
Yep, they'll do well. All right, thanks.
Bye-bye.